Hello, freshmen. I really like making these videos for you guys because, as I've said before and I'll say again, the plays for Romeo and Juliet, the plays for any play, are not really intended to be read first. They're intended to be watched, and they're intended to be heard. And there's something about what you're meant to do to experience the plays that is lost in translation if you just read. A very common error for students is that they sit with Shakespeare trying to decipher every single word and the importance of that word to the plot. When in reality, Shakespeare wrote several sequences of plays that were just supposed to be about portraying a mood or a tone or a vibe. And that's what you have here in the beginning sequence of Romeo and Juliet. You start with unnamed, well, they're named, but they're very minor characters. They're serving men from the houses of Capulet and Montague, respectively. Now, the Capulets are the ones who start in the play, but in one of the Baz Luhrmann, the 1997 modern version of it, it's the Montagues. I don't like that changeover, but whatevs. The Capulets are kind of walking around town. Now you have to remember that that's just what people do. They walk around town. They don't want to be stuck in their houses all day. There's no other entertainment, so they just walk around sort of talking to people, figuring stuff out. Now, these serving men are low on the totem pole. They're members of the Capulet household, not the Capulet family. They're not cousins or anything. They're just working for the house, which is a thing that used to happen. I mean, we don't have it really anymore so much, but they are members of the household. They're not exactly members of the family. However, you were supposed to rep like the family that you worked for in that capacity. So they're sitting there and they're all like having a good time, being into the fact that they're Capulets, and they're talking a big game. One thing I ask about, and I told you to look at while you were reading, is to try and figure out the ages of these characters. They're young. In the original story of Romeo and Juliet, the characters are all in their late teens and early 20s. Story, news article. I'll explain this if you want me to. Ask me in class. The characters here are all much younger. One of the main reasons that you guys read Romeo and Juliet is not because we want to, talk to you about a 2-day romance that ends in suicide. We want to talk to you about your decision-making skills because the characters here are all your ages. They're between the ages of 12 and I think 15 is the oldest, maybe 16. Tybalt's like 15 or 16. He's like among the older ones. You have here a collection of people who are young, old enough that they feel big. You guys feel big. Frequently you feel big, but you're not big. I remember being your age thinking how old I was, like I was finally grown up. I was in high school. I'm big now. And I look back and I'm like, God, I just was so young. I was so young, I didn't know anything. It's something that you only understand about yourself with time and perspective. At the time, you can't see it. And the decision-making capacity of kids in that age bracket is bad. You guys make bad decisions. All of you. You will know this when you one day look back at the hair and clothing that you chose to wear. You guys have a lot of photographs of it because you are a social media generation. You will one day look back and go oh no. Bad choices were made. No one warned me. I am warning you. So in this opening sequence, you have a bunch of young boys, and they're predominantly boys, talking with their friends. And it's very much like the kind of talk yourself up, make yourself look bigger kind of dialogue that happens between a bunch of prepubescent and pubescent boys. If you drop 5 or 6 12 to 14-year-old boys alone in a room, they're going to start trying to one-up each other. They're going to start trying to show who's the bigger and who's the stronger. And it's an entertainment form. It's a socialization form. It's not inherently evil. It's not bad. They're not doing anything wrong. But some of the things they're saying as they talk up each other and talk up the situation they're in are totally based on the fact that the Capulets and Montagues fight. So as they're walking around Verona, which is not a very big place, they're walking around. They're like, man, I hope we run into some Montagues. You hope we run into some Montagues? I hope we run into some Montagues. I would show those Montagues. I'm just saying. Like, you know, I am the person who should be out here representing this household. I should be here for the Capulets because I'm going to go hard on any Montague that comes at me. This is exactly the scenario that's being developed. The fighting is stupid. And Shakespeare does everything he can to periodically show how dumb the fighting is. That the fighting, we don't even remember the real reason for the fighting. No one really remembers it. We just fight because we've always been fighting, and we're fighting because I'm mad at you for fighting with us, and I'm not going to be the one to stop the fight. You're going to be the one to stop the fight. It's ridiculous. And they have everyone else involved in it. So it's not just the members of the families of the Capulets and Montagues, it's all the members of their households too. So you have these Capulet boys going around being little boys with swords. They have swords. This is great, right? Because we should clearly give prepubescent and pubescent boys swords. That's going to work out really well. The thing about swords is also sort of the thing about like cars or horses. It's something that represents the boy's masculinity. So you're going to see things like the boys going like, my sword is bigger than your sword and stronger and will do much more damage to other people. The thing is, when these boys are saying all of this stuff to each other, they're just saying it to their friends. Like the serving boys in the house of Capulet are friends. They live in the house, they work together, they know each other. It's sort of like being with people in the same classes as you. So like they're just kind of casually talking to each other, building each other up. They don't expect that they're actually going to run into Montagues. They just say that they hope they do. Then they do. Then it's like, oh crap, I've said all this stuff about fighting a Montague. I really better I have to deliver. How am I going to deliver? Then they have this weird, one of my favorite things, the back and forth. So they're all talking about if I saw a Montague man, I would end this Montague man. I would end him. Then a Montague shows up. He goes, what do I do? He goes, I don't know. What do you think you should do? I don't know. What should I do? Can I thumb my nose at him? Which is, it's an early modern version of flipping somebody off. So he's like, can I do that? And they're like, I mean, you can. He's like, will I get in trouble? They're like, yeah, bro, you can get in trouble for doing that. All right, but if I do it and then I say I didn't do it, you got me, right? We're together in this. He's like, I guess so, man. Yeah. So then he looks at the Montagues and he's like, come on, man. And he's like, did you just do that? No, but totally. My house is better than your house. So it's just this ridiculous, silly, stupid reason to fight by a bunch of teenage boys. It is more than a little funny, the different ways that they try to build each other up and build up their masculinity and build up how tough they are. It's just these little boys talking about how strong they are. And clearly, as the fighting begins, they've never really been in a fight. Now, when Tybalt comes in to break up the fight, Tybalt always takes things too far. He is that friend in the group. You have the friend, right? You have the friend where the rest of you are sort of playfully annoyed at each other. There's an ounce of true annoyance, but there's more playful annoyance. We're just having fun with each other's annoyance. Then you have the one friend who's like, I'm going to pour some gasoline on this fire and really start it. Let's go. That's Tybalt. Tybalt has never seen a fight that he didn't want to make worse. There's a few theories as to why. We'll get to them later. But Tybalt essentially sees the households fighting. He comes in, he's like, we're in this! And he just explodes the fight. They were already fighting and he makes it worse. And then the scene gets broken up. It gets broken up by the prince. So Verona, imagine if Tinton Falls, instead of having a mayor, had a little prince who was in charge of making sure that we didn't all devolve into chaos. That's kind of Verona for you. So there's two wealthy families. They make up a huge portion of the employment and the money in Verona. So they're important families. And then you have the prince who's not related to either one of them. And his family is in charge of running Verona. So his people come in and he's like, I need you guys to stop the fighting. We've had this conversation too many times. The next time I catch you guys fighting, exile. exile to whoever starts the fight, whoever's in the fight, just exile. You're gone. You can't come back. He is so over this ridiculous fighting. And you feel for him. I feel for him. More on these sequences later. Please answer the questions and make sure that if you have anything you want me to explain, you let me know.